tips and tricks video. Make sure you go back and check out part 1 if you haven't done so. This part will be all about some tips and tricks for using sample material to really add some flavour to your tracks. Now, the samples are really where hip hop comes into its own. It's a great template to collage any kind of material you like. I'm using the Shaolin Beats sample pack for this, so it's got a really nice kind of old school character to it, which is a lot of fun, but really you could just sample anything you like, so really get imaginative and see what you can come up with. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is using little snippets of your samples to kind of add a nice flavour to your loop without it taking over too much. Now, I've got this small snippet here, sort of vocals with some other stuff going on in the background that's actually part of a much longer loop. But I decided that what I wanted to do was just really kind of set up the loop nicely, give it a bit of sort of melodic and harmonic content, and really all it needed to do that was just this little snippets at the end of the bar, basically. So let's just hear what that sounds like with the drums. So I've just added in a little bit of melody there, and it's something that really kind of reinforces the loop. So every 2 bars it happens right at the end and just pushes it into the next 2 bars. And you can use a lot of these little snippets if you like, just to kind of add some extra flavour to what would otherwise be just sort of breaks and bass, basically. Now I've cut up a Vibraphone sample, which is at the top of the samples group here, to try and create a bit of melody over the top and kind of give it a clear kind of melodic character. So let's just have a quick listen to how that kind of fits over the top of everything else. Great, so as you can see here, I've kind of chopped it up a little bit from its original format, just to edit the melody a little bit, but I haven't done anything too crazy really. I just tried to sort of create my own pattern to fit what I was hearing in my head or what was going on in the rest of the track. Now it's kind of nice to set up a nice sort of melodic theme. It's something that you can return to throughout the course of the track, although that's something that we'll talk about more in the next video. Also, it's just something for people to hang on to as well. Sometimes it can be a little bit disorientating just to have sort of drums and bass and the occasional little snippet. Now, the Vibraphone's a good sound to use for this because it's quite clear, it's got quite a lot of high frequency content, and it's got a nice sustain, so it should carry out over our more sort of transient short sounds that make up all the drums and things like that. But I've also used other sounds as well as we go through the track. So there's a trumpet sample as well, this one here. And that's actually in the following 8 bars, so what we get is we get a nice kind of A-B kind of interchange. Now again, the trumpet's quite good because there's a bit of high frequency stuff going on. It's got a nice sort of sustain. There's a bit of reverb in there and the mix of this sample as well, so it allows it to just kind of create a texture over the top, on top of giving it a bit of melody. So let's listen to that whole 16-bar loop, and you'll see why the melodic material is so important.
the city.
Great. So the next thing I want to say is just really kind of get creative with your layering of samples. Like, don't necessarily worry about what is sort of technically in key. As long as it sounds good to you, it probably sounds good. Hip hop's always been about contrast, especially since it's so sample heavy. It's taking sort of unlikely things and fitting them together, stuff that maybe was recorded in different places at different times. So just, you know, really throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Now, an example of this is a bar 45. I've taken the sample in G, this one at the top here, which is what we took the original snippet from that I mentioned at the start of this tutorial. And I've chucked that underneath this trumpet sample that we heard in section B, which is in B. The combination of the two is kind of nice to create a kind of breakdown section before we return to our original idea. So that works quite well, and then in the following section where I wanted to return to the original idea, but felt like it needed something extra, I've taken our original Vibraphone sample, although a slightly edited version, that guy, and I've layered a Fender Rhodes sample in C underneath. So we've got one sample that's in F, one in C, but it kind of created this nice kind of tension that I felt really kind of changed the mood enough to justify going back to the original idea. So let's hear how they sound together. Now, to pull this off, I did have to repitch the Rhodes a little bit. As you can see down here, I've dropped it down by 3 semitones, just by ear, basically, just to see whether it fits. So, you know, play around, throw things together. If they don't quite work, repitch them, see if you can get it to kind of fit, chop things up, move things around. But most importantly, just try and create a nice contrast, nice textures, and, you know, if it sounds good to you, then it sounds good. Now, the one final thing I want to look at is the dialogue samples that I've used. It's quite a good thing to have in a hip-hop track, instrumental especially, but generally, like, it's a nice way to kind of give your track a narrative if maybe you're not going to have an MC on there, or if you are, maybe it gives them a theme or something to work from. Now, the Shaolin Beats pack has a lot of these samples from old kung fu movies and things like that, which is kind of perfect for this vibe. So I just grabbed a few different ones and sort of sprinkled them throughout. So it's this pink track at the bottom here. You can see I've just got them in a few different places, like so.
Master, Sanjay is finished. We can attack the city. We cannot kill her yet.
She's a princess of the Golden City.
And the same here as well.
Master, Sanjay is finished. We can attack the city.
And again.
Cannot kill her yet.
She's a princess of the Golden City.
So just really kind of, yeah, like I said, gives it a narrative throughout the track. It's a nice thing thematically to return to a little bit as well. But I like to try and find, even if they're samples taken from a few different places, to try and put them together in a way that kind of makes some kind of sense when people listen to it. Like, it sounds like they're talking about the same thing, or they're having a conversation or something like that. Now, I've also taken a few other little samples from kung fu movies from this pack. Sort of punching sounds. Just to kind of use that as a bit of percussion, I suppose. Just ties the vocal samples in the bottom track into the arrangement a little bit more by having a few other samples with the same kind of tone and quality. And you can use that as a nice repeating element like I've done here in this end section, as you would have heard when I was playing through it just now.
Of the Golden City.
So there you go, there's a few things to think about when you're taking your samples and chopping them up. I think just try and grab as many different sources as you possibly can, and really most things can be made to fit together if you are imaginative enough. So have a play, don't restrict yourself, and most importantly have some fun with it. The next part of this 3-part tutorial is going to be about arrangement tricks, so make sure you click through and check that out.